right. Hello and welcome. My name is Herminder Ray, and I'm a faculty support classroom consultant with UAGC. I will be the host for this session, The Impact of Doctoral Writing Coaching, Findings from a Pilot Study. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we do encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the live transcription button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Peggy Sundstrom, lead faculty for the PhD program in Organizational Development and Leadership with UAGC.
Thank you very much, and welcome everybody. It's delightful to be here today. As Hermander said, I'm in charge of the PhD program in Organizational Development and Leadership, also called ODL because that's a mouthful. I've been with the university in its various forms since about 2009 and with the lead faculty position since about 2015. I've done a lot of doctoral research chairing, and you'll see how that comes in as we go through this presentation. I'm really committed to the idea of meeting students where they are and helping them be successful as they move forward. So what I'd like to do in today's presentation is tell you about a pilot study that we conducted last year that involved providing free doctoral writing coaching for students in their entry point class. Talk a little bit about the background of the study, what justified it, and then of course, some findings and recommendations. But first, I really want to take just a minute to give credit where credit is due. The co-investigator for this project was Dr. Jen Robinson, and Dr. Robinson was instrumental in helping me put together the scoring rubric and also working with our very excellent doctoral writing coaches. And we had two doctoral writing coaches who are chosen from among our associate faculty members, Dr. Diane Learned and Dr. Diane Hilbrink. So many thanks to them for their participation. I need to give a big shout out to Dr. Paul Greenberg, who helped me with the statistics for this presentation and to look at the findings from this study. Paul is just a consummate gentleman and helped me greatly in putting the findings together. The University Fellows Program did sponsor this pilot project and provided the funding for us to hire our associate faculty members. So many thanks to that group and also to the students and faculty who supported the study. Thank you very much. Without them, of course, you can't do a study. So a little bit about what this pilot study was. We wanted to find out whether or not doctoral writing coaching, individualized coaching for entry point doctoral students would help prepare them for greater success in their, both in their coursework and eventually in their doctoral research project. You see the purpose of the study listed here. It was quasi-experimental and it was also mixed methods. I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. But we tried to set this up as robustly as we could to get some good numbers. So here's a little bit about the background. So nationwide, we have a problem with doctoral students not completing their programs. And this happens both in traditional on-the-ground kinds of academic programs as well as in our online programs. So this is not inconsequential, the fact that people are starting and not finishing. So the statistics I have here suggest that about 38% of students who start a doctoral program in social sciences finish within 7 years. Here at UAGC in our PhD ODL program, our numbers are about 28%. So only 28% of the people are finishing. So that's quite a bit of attrition. The next statistic is very telling. 45% of the students who do not complete stop because of their dissertation. So the dissertation is really a roadblock for many students in completing their degree. Now, we also know that many of our students start with inadequate academic skills. Here at UAGC, as you well know, we have an open admissions policy, which is absolutely fantastic for our non-traditional students to have an opportunity to pursue a degree, and particularly to pursue a doctoral degree online. There aren't very many high quality programs. We count ourselves among those, and we really appreciate our students who are full-time, typically full-time workers, parents, have responsibilities in the community. But many of them come in after an absence from school, so they're coming back to school to complete a doctoral degree. They're out of polish in terms of academic writing skills, and some of them simply may not be particularly well prepared from their previous studies. So persistence and aptitude can be a challenge, and when students don't have those strong writing skills, it can really be a challenge. This has particularly been noted by our instructors, both in our coursework and our chairs of doctoral research projects. When I say doctoral research projects, I'm talking both about dissertations and our applied doctoral project, which are completed by our Doctor of Psychology students. So we have evidence that that students in general have a tough time with academic skills, and also here at UAGC. What we find in the literature is it's pretty well known that academic writing can be a huge problem for many students. And if students don't have the academic skills to succeed, they're likely to drop out and not complete their doctoral program. According to WASC, these critical foundational skills are critical thinking, written and oral communication, information literacy, and quantitative reasoning. So academic writing skills are fundamental to degree completion. But what researchers also tell us is that many students are hesitant to ask for help with writing because, we're all supposed to know how to write. Well, you know that academic writing is different than dashing off an email or writing a report or that kind of thing. And in fact, with more shortcut electronic communication, we do less writing than we ever did. So, in fact, our writing skills become a source of anxiety for many students, and many students get kind of tied up in knots when they get this feedback that your writing skills aren't strong enough. They sort of don't know what to do about that. So these foundational skills can affect both the completion of their coursework and their doctoral research project. Again, feedback from our chairs that tell us that academic writing and critical thinking are significant detractors in students once they reach that doctoral research component. Some stats from UAGC you might be interested in. Minority students make up about 54% of the PhD ODL students, and African Americans about 36% of our students, compared with about 13.4% in the general population. That means we are majority minority, and we value that, we treasure that. Women also make up more than half of our doctoral students. So any program that's going to benefit our students in the PhD ODL program by necessity will impact minority students and women, which is, to me, as a female educator, very important that we're helping people, we're meeting people where they're at and giving them the skills that they need. So, a little bit about the pilot program itself. We designed this to be an opt-in program. So we offered free doctoral writing coaching, academic writing coaching, one-on-one. We offered this to all students who were in the PhD entry point class between the end of January and beginning of June earlier this year, so in 2022. So relatively short window of period to conduct this pilot study. And as you'll see, a little bit longer time would have been great. That's what we had, and that's what we worked with. So students were encouraged to apply with postings in the classroom and personal invitations. And those who decided to opt in and signed an informed consent became our treatment group. And the students who chose not to pursue the doctoral writing became a de facto control group. So initially we had 45 students over this period of time who enrolled in the pilot, 21 in the treatment, 24 in the control. When we finished and did our time 2 assessments, some of our students were not in class or had dropped out. And so we had 28 students, and that's the data I'm going to share with you in just a little bit, is for the students for whom we have both pre and post assessments. So students in the treatment group were matched up with a writing coach and received one-to-one coaching from that individual over a period of about 6, maybe 7 weeks. Students in both the treatment and the control group received in-class feedback, support, and guidance from our instructors. That's something that we do for all of our students. We're coaching students all the time in our feedback on their assignments about writing. So, and of course, they had access to all our regular UAGC resources, including the excellent resources in the Writing Center. So, how did we measure things? Well, for every student in our entry point classes that were involved in the pilot, we took a time 1 measurement by assessing writing scores on the week 2 assignment in that entry point class. And then we took post-intervention scores from the students' week 3 assignment. It wasn't all from the same class. Some students take different classes for their second and third classes. And our rubric looked at grammar, sentence structure, analytical skills, and academic voice. These were all scored blind. I personally downloaded papers into Word, removed all identifying information, and these were assigned to our coaches for assessment. And those were all posted blind, both pre and post. So here's what we found initially. Among those students who had signed up to participate in the free coaching, we had a mean score of 6.42 on a scale of 10. For our control group, 5.97, a delta of about 0.45. And if you look at the tiny print at the bottom of the screen that shows you our scores, these were falling in what we would consider the basic level of academic writing for doctoral students. That was at T1. So what were some of the differences? We found that people who scored higher were the people who signed up for coaching scored higher than the other group. And just as a little aside, I checked into that, and it turns out that people who are predisposed to self-improvement, who have strong sense of self and psychological resources like a growth mindset, are more likely to sign up to get feedback, including potentially negative feedback that allows them then to improve. So according to some of the folks I talked about, they said, yeah, that happens all the time. When you offer a program, it's often the people who need it most who choose not to participate. And we saw a little bit of that effect. Now, for the moment I know you're all waiting for, what happened afterwards in our post-intervention findings? Again, same rubric, same blind assessment, same group of assessors. Our treatment mean rose to 7.53, and again, the small type at the bottom, you can see that the treatment group edged into what we would consider a level of proficient writing at the doctoral level. A mean of 6.67 for the control group kept them in that basic group. And you'll see that the difference between the two scores is now 0.86 instead of 0.45, which means that the groups were beginning to separate. Statistically, we did see a difference between both groups, between both the treatment and the control group from T1 to T2. And as I explained, we do give students an awful lot of feedback during their first couple of classes on their writing. And we think some of the effect is there. But we also saw a difference in the score at T2 between the treatment group and the control group. And we did overall, we used an ANOVA to look at the differences at the different times and the between group differences. A paired t-test at T2 would tell you that there was a statistically significant difference between the control and the treatment group. Our numbers are small. Interpret these with caution. Am I excited about it? Yes. Do I think that we need to do more validation of this? Absolutely. But the fact that our treatment group edged into proficient and our control group stayed at basic is also heartening to see. Now, I think I may have covered this. Coaching and feedback from instructors, that explains the difference from T1 to T2. Why didn't we see more difference? I would have liked to have seen a bigger difference between our treatment and control group, but we also know that we had a very short intervention time, only 6 weeks of coaching. And in some cases, students didn't even receive that much because there was some difficulty with connecting the coach with the student, not because they weren't trying, but because of times and schedules and work and time zone differences. So what's the impact of the small sample size here? Interpret this with caution. Confounding factors in students' lives can certainly make a difference. We could see some individual variation from T1, T2 that just couldn't be explained by something other than factors outside of the control of the experiment itself. So do I think the pilot was successful? Yes. I also think that we need to continue this, that the findings are very positive, but we need more evidence. I do have additional evidence to share with you, and that was from the qualitative findings. So I conducted interviews with some of the participants in our treatment group and asked them their perceptions of the coaching and what they thought about it and what their recommendations. Hands down, all of the students said, this was terrific. It was great. I thought I was a pretty good writer. I got some great information. I got practical advice. I was able to see errors in my own writing. I was able to apply a fix. Understand that the coaching wasn't just edit your paper and send it back. The coaching was one-on-one where the coach would go through the paper with the student, then help them understand where they had weak sentence structure, where they could improve their academic tone, where they could integrate resources more effectively. So it was really very hands-on, and the students very much appreciated that and what they were able to learn and then apply. So of course, they have a paper due the following week. So students said, wow, I was able to take what I learned this week, apply it next week, and felt much more confidence in my writing. And I know I can continue to grow. They did talk about the challenges with time zones and coordinating with the coach to find a great time to really connect, because the coaching sessions typically would go for at least an hour on a Zoom call. And our coaches did a great job of reaching out to students, but they weren't always able to connect as often as would have been optimal. So our students recommended, hey, we need more sessions, make this coaching longer. We really valued this. We would love to continue to work with that coach. One student said, hey, you should make this mandatory for everybody. I mean, everybody could benefit from some feedback on their writing and the ability to understand where they're making mistakes in academic writing, which is different than regular writing. They asked for additional resources, similar to some of the things that are available in the Writing Center, videos, notes, that kind of thing. And they would like to see the coaching be available over the course of their program. So the idea that, gee, when I feel like I'm struggling or I'm getting some feedback from my instructor that says, gee, your writing's not as strong as it could be, I'd like to be able to go back to the coach. In fact, I love the fact that one student said, a writing coach ought to be part of my success team. So when I sign on to my student portal, there's my advisor and financial aid, here's people I can call, there's my writing coach, and I can access this person for assistance with my writing. Oh, and keep it free. that makes a big difference for our students, as it's provided at no additional charge. I'd like to mention, for those of you who are familiar with high impact practices in George Koo, we did create a first year experiences, which is one of the high impact practices, is to get to students during their first year of academics. And obviously this was writing intensive. Students got a lot of feedback. They got performance improvement feedback, and then could turn right around and apply the information that they got. So it required significant effort on their part, but they also could demonstrate their acumen and their mastery of these skills. So that competence was put to work. And the students that I spoke with in the interviews told me that they were going back to the notes that they had made. So this is a real great way to leverage that learning over a period of time. So conclusions, even a short period of coaching seems to make a difference in students' level of confidence and actually in strengthening their writing, as demonstrated by this short pilot where we began to see some differences. And we believe that if we had been able to run the coaching over a longer period of time, the differences in those mean scores would have grown. They would have been even higher. Student perceptions were great. They loved the idea. They loved the coaches. Finding good coaches makes a big difference. These aren't editors. These are coaches. Big difference in terms of the work that they were doing with our students. And our student participants would like to see more of this available on an ongoing basis. So in terms of recommendations, I would love to expand and repeat this pilot study. And I would like to do it with students, doctoral students from other programs. It was easiest for us to work within my program, the PhD ODL, but I know from talking with my colleagues and working with students from our other doctoral programs, the same kinds of writing challenges exist there. So if we were able to expand the program, open it up, and provide a longer time frame of coaching, perhaps 12 weeks would be a good place to start. And we might want to consider automatically enrolling students in coaching. So not asking them to opt in, but allowing them to opt out if they chose not to do that. So this would be a differentiator for the UAGC doctoral programs that, hey, when you start a program here with us, we help you with your writing right off the bat to set you up for success during your coursework and then while you're doing your doctoral research project. So editing is important. Don't get me wrong. I've emphasized coaching. We do need editors. We need, in particular, editors who work with our dissertation students. But we shouldn't be telling students who are at that point of starting their doctoral research project, gee, your writing skills aren't very strong, because it's really tough for people overnight to improve their skills. So let's work with them through the coursework, and then when they get to dissertation or applied doctoral project stage, help them with polishing, editing, improving their writing at that point in time. So again, in concert with culture of care, we want to hold students to appropriately high expectations. This is a doctoral program. We're not going to cut back or fudge on rigor, but what we do want to do is make certain that we're meeting students where they're at, that we're offering them the resources and support that they need to be successful. And that, I believe, fits beautifully within the culture of care. I'd like to show you that there is gee, you can't read that slide, can you? Of course not, but there's a whole list of references here. I made a note several times, researchers had shown that. Well, here it is right here. So when this is posted up in the CETL, you can find those resources if you'd like to. You can also reach out to me if one-on-one via email if you'd like me to answer any questions you have. And Herminder, I think we could open for questions now if there are any.
Yeah, if there's any questions anyone has, feel free to post them in the chat. Dr. Sundstrom, this is, wonderful information, and it really illustrates, how valuable just having that one-on-one attention for the student, has that impact on student success. You discussed earlier the growth mindset. We're going to see students participate, that have that growth mindset. What are some ways that faculty and anyone, with the university can help students develop that growth mindset to encourage participation and just really stick with a program such as this?
Right. And that's a great question. People tend towards growth mindset or fixed mindset, but within each individual is a capacity to develop a growth mindset. Part of it is believing in oneself and believing in the idea that we can change, we can improve. With opportunity, we can be something different. We can adapt to what's coming down the road, and we can be flexible. I actually think, Herminder, that our culture of care feeds right into this growth mindset, because what we're telling students is you can be successful. I will help you be successful. But you, student, have to want to do it. So it takes two to tango, if you will. And in fact, we're strongly encouraging our instructors in the PhD Organizational Development and Leadership program to have that flexibility, to offer that additional support, to provide resources for students. We're starting to provide for all of our instructors the kinds of coaching sorts of things that students can use to develop their own capacity. So it's a process. But I think we do it one student at a time by understanding what a particular student's need is and responding to that.
Thank you. We did have a question come in from Todd. He mentions, of course, it's a very impressive result that we have here. And of course, not surprisingly, considering the challenges many of our doctoral students have with writing, was the nature of the scholarly writing part of the coaching, I guess I'm not sure if I'm asking that correctly, and Todd, please fill in, but Peggy, if you have a response for that.
Yeah, Todd, thanks for the question. We were focusing specifically on scholarly writing. And so we were, and I know where you're coming from because you're one of our excellent doctoral research chairs. And what we often see is that people write the way they speak. And academic writing is different. Academic writing integrates resources, has a good depth of critical thinking, and is really aimed at conveying a message and a synthesis of information. And so it's very different than jotting off an email message to your boss or even writing up a short report. So yes, very much an emphasis on scholarly writing. Our instructors are both associate faculty members. They both have PhDs, so they've been through that process and they really understand that challenge. So they could connect with the students in that way, and then really be able to, to convey the need to write in a particular fashion. And Todd, you may have experienced this. I have a student who's published a couple of books, and so she thought she was a pretty good writer, and she is a great writer of teenage fiction. Her scholarly writing needs work because it's a different kind of writing. So it isn't a matter of intellect, it's a matter of practice. And writing skills can be taught, they can be learned, and people can improve. That's what's so wonderful about this.
Thank you. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. But again, a lot of positive response to the study and pilot study, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes and the improvement that we're going to see with the program itself, and maybe ways we can integrate this in in our master's and bachelor's program as well. So we'll be excited to see where this takes off.
Yeah, and again, I must give a shout out to our academic administration. Dr. Lafferty and Dr. Barb Zorin Arnold are very aware of some of the challenges we have on our students, and they're working towards programs that will begin to address these. It's tough. As I said, one student at a time consuming, but absolutely worth it if our students can go on to be successful. Those of you who watched the video this morning with our Dr. Stallworth, who came from the PsyD program, excellent evidence that a doctoral degree can make a huge difference in a person's life. So it's our responsibility to make certain we're doing what we can to help them be successful. So thank you very much. Please feel free to reach out to me, the usual mechanisms, and I would be happy to follow up with any of your questions.
Right. And thank you again, Dr. Sundstrom, and our audience, and for your participation in today's session. I would like to remind you that our next keynote presenter is Dr. Adriana Kieser, and she is scheduled for tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We do encourage you to attend the wonderful TLC sessions we have the rest of this week, and please enjoy the rest of TLC. Thank you.